Today's episode is delivered to you in an audiobook format. Our focus today is Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High by Kerry Patterson, Joseph Grenny, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzler. The overarching premise of this book is that when conversations matter most, when opinions differ, emotions run hot, and the stakes couldn't be higher, we often do our worst. We clam up, lash out, or dance around the issues because fear and tension derail productive dialogue. In this narration, we'll explore how the authors define a crucial conversation, the psychology that drives us to handle these moments poorly, and, most importantly, the tools and mindsets that can help us remain candid and respectful, even when everything is on the line. The authors define a crucial conversation as one where 1. The stakes are high, 2. Emotions run strong, and 3. Opinions vary among the participants. Common examples might be speaking to a boss about your dissatisfaction with a new policy, confronting a family member about an ongoing conflict, or deciding how to handle finances in a marriage. In these moments, because we care so deeply about the outcome and are emotionally invested, we risk slipping into silence, passive aggression, or open hostility. Our instincts often sabotage the very results we crave. Patterson and his co-authors say that learning to handle these charged moments effectively can drastically improve our careers, our relationships, and our personal well-being. One of the first principles in crucial conversations is that we must start with heart. This means we examine our own motives. What do we really want out of this conversation? Are we seeking revenge or point scoring, or do we sincerely want a better outcome for everyone involved? By clarifying our deeper purpose, we can keep the conversation on track. The authors argue that if your motive is to win or to make the other person feel small, you're setting the stage for failure. Instead, a crucial conversation should aim to keep everyone's best interests at heart, even if you disagree about what those best interests might look like. They write, "Before you enter the conversation, ask yourself, what do I really want for me, for others, and for the relationship?" However, good intentions alone aren't enough. Emotions can hijack us, even when we vow to remain calm. So the authors introduce the concept of master my stories. We react to events not just based on raw data, but on the interpretation, the story, we tell ourselves about the data. For example, if a colleague is late to a meeting, you might spin a story that they're lazy or disrespectful, which triggers anger or resentment. Another story might be that they had an emergency come up, which triggers concern or patience. These internal narratives can push us towards silence. We keep quiet and resent them internally. Or violence, we lash out, accusing them of sabotage. The trick is to notice the story you're telling yourself and ask, is there a more generous or more accurate explanation? This approach prevents us from boiling over or shutting down due to assumptions. While silence and violence might sound dramatic, the authors use these terms to describe the two default responses people often resort to when communication feels unsafe. Silence can take forms like avoiding the topic, deflecting, or physically removing yourself from the conversation. Violence is not necessarily physical aggression, but can be sarcasm, name-calling, shouting, or intimidation. Both extremes diminish the free flow of meaning. No one is truly sharing honestly, so you lose the chance for resolution. Patterson and his co-authors say, when it comes to risky topics, talking is the only way to create synergy in real solutions. Yet talk is the one thing we're often reluctant to do well. A central focus of crucial conversations is the idea of creating Safety. If people do not feel safe to express their views, they clam up or get hostile. The authors say we must repeatedly check whether the conversation remains within a zone of safety, where no one feels attacked or belittled. They outline strategies like apologizing when appropriate, clarifying that you respect others' opinions, and confirming mutual goals. For instance, you might say, "I realize we may disagree, but I respect your perspective and want us both to find a workable path." Such a statement helps the other person see you as an ally rather than an enemy. One valuable tool is to notice when conversation becomes crucial. We often slip into autopilot, not realizing that the conversation has escalated from a casual chat to a high-stakes confrontation. Maybe you feel your stomach knot, or your voice becomes tense, or the other person's tone changes abruptly. The authors advise us to watch for signs that safety is unraveling. People might cross their arms, speak in short sentences, or show sarcasm. Once you notice these cues, it's time to step out of the content momentarily and restore safety. You might say, "I sense we're both getting upset. Let's pause and figure out how to continue without hurting each other." This act of stepping out of the immediate argument to address the climate of the conversation can transform a blow-up into a constructive dialogue. The authors propose the acronym STATE. Share your facts, tell your story, ask for others' paths, talk tentatively, and encourage testing. As a method for expressing your viewpoint effectively, let's break that down. Share your facts. Begin with the objective data you've observed. For example, we agreed on a 9 a.m. start time and you arrived at 10:15. That's happened 3 times this month. Facts are less controversial than judgments. If you lead with, "You're so irresponsible," you've jumped to a conclusion. But stating facts is more neutral. Tell your story. Next, explain the interpretation you drew. "Because of these late arrivals, I've started to think you don't respect my time." This is where you own that it's your interpretation and might be fallible. Ask for others' paths, then invite the other person to explain their viewpoint. "Could you share your perspective? Is there something I don't know about why it's been hard to make it by 9 a.m.? This signals openness rather than a rush to condemnation. Talk tentatively. Present your story as one possible explanation, not an absolute truth. "Maybe I'm missing something, but I worry that it suggests a lack of respect for the schedule." This leaves room for correction or additional info. Encourage testing. Actively encourage the other person to test your conclusions, correct you, or offer alternatives. Does that make sense? Or is there another angle I haven't considered? This fosters a collaborative environment rather than a combative one. Throughout these steps, you maintain an atmosphere of safety by showing humility and curiosity. If at any point the conversation derails, someone grows defensive, starts interrupting, or withdraws, you go back to ensuring safety. You might say, "I'm worried I've offended you. That wasn't my intention. Let's figure out how we can talk about this without damaging our relationship." A key insight is that each participant must believe that you and they have mutual respect and mutual purpose. Mutual respect means you regard them as a person of worth, and they reciprocate that. Mutual purpose means you share a common overarching goal, even if you differ on how to achieve it. If you're in a workplace debate, for example, you might clarify, "I know we both want what's best for the team's success. Let's keep that in mind as we figure out how to handle the deadlines." That statement reminds everyone that you're aligned on the bigger picture, which reduces fear that one side wants to win at the other's expense. One might ask, But what if the other person truly is disrespectful or has malicious intent? Won't this approach fail? The authors respond that you can't force anyone to behave respectfully, but you can refuse to get dragged into a negative spiral. By consistently modeling respectful dialogue, you either inspire them to reciprocate or expose that they're unwilling to collaborate. In that latter case, you still preserve your integrity and clarity. Patterson and his co-authors note that while crucial conversations are two-way, controlling your own approach is the best leverage you have. Another powerful idea is to explore others' paths. People don't just disagree with you for no reason. They have stories, data, concerns, or experiences that shaped their position. If you label them as stubborn or short-sighted, you're missing the chance to understand the real issue. Instead, invite them to share. Could you tell me how you arrived at this conclusion? I'd like to see the situation from your viewpoint. Then, as they speak, you actively listen. You might paraphrase their words back or ask clarifying questions. Even if you still disagree, they feel heard, which can reduce tension. And you, in turn, might learn something that refines your own perspective. This emphasis on listening is central. In heated discussions, we often forget to listen because we're so busy crafting our counter-argument. Crucial Conversations states that listening is the best tool to rebuild safety if the other person feels attacked. By demonstrating genuine curiosity about their stance, you lower their defensiveness, making them more open to hearing your side afterward. Patterson and colleagues say, when people feel heard, they become far more willing to engage in solutions, even if those solutions differ from their original position. We should also consider how Crucial Conversations addresses organizational dynamics. The authors note that in many workplaces, employees don't speak up about concerns because they fear retaliation or ridicule. Meanwhile, management might be oblivious to real issues until it's too late. They argue that the most effective organizations foster a culture where crucial conversations happen routinely, where even a frontline worker can challenge a senior executive if it improves processes or prevents errors. They share anecdotes of hospitals where medical staff overcame hierarchical barriers, enabling nurses to point out potential mistakes to doctors, significantly reducing patient harm. By encouraging respectful but candid dialogue across all levels, these organizations harness the collective intelligence of their people. In personal relationships, Crucial Conversations can revolve around issues like finances, parenting, intimacy, or lifestyle choices. Avoiding them might lead to resentment, passive aggression, or even the slow breakdown of the relationship. But tackling them poorly can also lead to shouting matches or emotional wounds that never heal. The authors emphasize that skillful conversation is a learnable discipline. Just as we learn to ride a bike, we can learn to remain calm, purposeful, and tactful when emotions flare. It takes practice, reflection on past mistakes, and maybe even role-playing or seeking feedback from trusted friends. One of the more challenging aspects is sustaining the changes over time. Often, after reading a book like this or attending a workshop, people feel motivated but quickly revert to old habits when an unexpected confrontation emerges. The authors recommend preparing for crucial conversations by anticipating them in advance. Ask yourself, when is the next time I might need to raise a difficult subject at work or at home? Then mentally rehearse using state or checking for safety. Visualize how you will respond if the other person gets defensive or tries to shut the conversation down. By preemptively planning, you can more easily bring these techniques to life when the moment arrives. They also talk about moving to action. A crucial conversation isn't just about expressing viewpoints. It should end with a clear plan or agreement. It's pointless to share and explore data if you never decide how to move forward. So, by the end of the conversation, participants specify who will do what and by when, and they define how they'll follow up. Patterson and his co-authors say that decisions without follow-up are just words. The conversation remains incomplete if no one commits to next steps. In a workplace scenario, this might mean a clear list of tasks with deadlines. In a personal scenario, it might mean an agreement on changes each person will attempt, with a check-in date. This ensures that the newly shared insights lead to real improvements. The authors also address cultural differences. Communication norms vary across cultures, and what one group sees as respectful might feel blunt or even confrontational to another. They encourage us to adapt the fundamental principles, focus on shared goals, maintain respect, invite dialogue, and remain curious about other stories, to whichever cultural context we face. You might need to soften direct statements or rely more on indirect cues in certain cultures, but the underlying aim of preserving safety and honesty remains universal. They write, "In any cultural setting, the path to dialogue involves showing that you value the other person's perspective and that you're open to adjusting your own." Sometimes people ask, doesn't this approach drag out conflict? Shouldn't we just be direct and cut to the chase? The authors answer that directness alone can be perceived as an attack if not balanced with empathy. Rushing through a crucial conversation might cause more damage if the other person doesn't feel heard or safe. The process might initially take longer, hearing each other out, clarifying misunderstandings, and looking for common ground. But it tends to yield solutions that stick rather than short-term fixes people resent. Over the long run, organizations and relationships that invest in open dialogue spend less time putting out fires and more time producing lasting results. It's worth discussing the emotional toll these conversations can have. Even if you have the best intentions, stepping into a crucial conversation can feel stressful. The authors acknowledge that sweaty palms, a pounding heart, or a shaky voice are normal signs of human physiology under perceived threat. They suggest naming the fear silently to yourself, "I'm feeling anxious because this conversation matters," and reminding yourself of your purpose. If the tension escalates too far, you have the option to pause, reaffirm mutual respect, or even reschedule if you believe continuing would do more harm than good. The goal is progress, not pushing through at all costs. One memorable example from the book involves a person who has to confront a sibling about their care for an aging parent. The stakes are high. Their relationship is at risk. The parent's well-being is uncertain, and emotions about fairness or old family dynamics can run hot. Approaching it with state, the sibling might say, "I've noticed that Dad has multiple doctor appointments each week that usually fall on me to arrange or attend. I'm interpreting that as me carrying most of the workload, and it's making me feel overwhelmed. Could you share your perspective on how we might share these responsibilities more evenly?" This approach is more constructive than, "You never do anything to help Dad, and I'm sick of it," which would likely provoke immediate defensiveness. The authors also caution about pseudo-crucial conversations, moments that feel urgent to us personally, but are not truly high stakes. We must be discerning so we don't turn every disagreement into a major confrontation. However, genuine crucial conversations can't be safely avoided. By ignoring them, we typically sow resentment and eventually experience blow-ups that do more damage. So the question is never, should we have this conversation? But how can we have it skillfully, with respect and candor? As we move toward the end of this exploration, it's important to connect these methods to real-life transformations. The authors provide anecdotes of couples who went from constant bickering and silent resentment to a more unified approach to budgeting or chores, simply by ensuring each partner felt safe to express concerns and believed the other was genuinely listening. Or workplaces that overcame stifled creativity and endless friction by regularly scheduling open forums where employees at all levels could present issues without fear of backlash. Many organizations have integrated crucial conversations training into their corporate culture, measuring improvements in productivity, employee satisfaction, and conflict resolution. Ultimately, crucial conversations is more than a set of techniques. It's a mindset shift. The main premise is that open, honest dialogue conducted in a safe atmosphere is how good ideas surface, strong relationships form, and effective decisions get made. If we treat disagreement and emotion as normal aspects of collaboration, rather than dangers, we become far less likely to slip into silence or violence. Patterson, Grenny, McMillan, and Switzler argue that the synergy of multiple perspectives can only blossom when everyone feels free to contribute. They note, when people hold back their opinions, partial solutions or hidden traps remain unexamined, and organizations or families suffer the consequences. Let's recap the essence of crucial conversations. High-stakes discussions are unavoidable in work and life. Our natural fight-or-flight reactions often sabotage these moments, leading to silence or hostility. The authors lay out a roadmap for staying candid yet respectful. 1. Start with heart, clarify your motives. 2. Notice when safety is at risk. 3. Step out of the content to restore safety if needed. 4. Master your story by questioning your own assumptions. 5. Use state to share your view. Facts first, then your story. Invite their perspective. Speak tentatively. Encourage them to challenge your viewpoint. And 6. Move to action by deciding on who does what and by when. Underpinning all of this is a commitment to mutual purpose and mutual respect, ensuring that everyone involved sees themselves as collaborators rather than adversaries. As we bring this to a close, consider your own life. Where do crucial conversations lie in wait? Perhaps it's a conflict with a coworker that you've been avoiding, or a recurring disagreement with a spouse, or an important decision with siblings about family matters. The idea is not to rush in aggressively, but to prepare mentally. Adopt a posture of curiosity and respect, and rely on these skills to guide you. The authors promise that improving in crucial conversations can yield disproportionate benefits. Issues get resolved faster, trust grows stronger, and you become the person people look to when real dialogue is needed. Thank you for joining me for this in-depth exploration of Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. I hope you found it illuminating and that it motivates you to step more confidently into the challenging but necessary discussions that shape your relationships and your future. The authors believe and illustrate with plenty of examples that most problems in organizations or families are not technical but relational. Learning to hold crucial conversations effectively can transform the entire dynamic, unleashing creativity, unity, and solutions that genuinely stick. So the next time your heart pounds and your mind races in a tense discussion, recall these principles, breathe, and remember. With the right approach, any conversation, no matter how high the stakes, can become a path to clarity, connection, and meaningful change.